Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
That's my right. Shots fired outside Dominica's parliament as protesters express their opposition to a new bill before the House. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Tuesday, May 23rd. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Thank you for joining us. Good evening. Gunshots were fired outside Parliament in Dominica on Tuesday afternoon just as proceedings broke for lunch. It was not clear who fired the shots, however, and the online publication Dominica News Online reported that protesters tried to break barricades around the Parliament building. Protesters had gathered to voice their opposition to a bill to amend the House of Assembly Elections Act. The opposition United Workers' Party argued that the amendments would legalize bribery, which is an electoral offense. But the government dismissed the concern, saying bribery remains an offense. The UWP had called on patriotic Dominicans to go down to Parliament and let their positions be known. But speaking ahead of Tuesday's proceedings, Police Commissioner Daniel Carbon warned members of the public to stay away, and he said there would be no protests outside the Parliament building. Caymanians are making final preparations to go to the polls to elect a new government on Wednesday, and a 6-member independent election observer mission is there to monitor the general elections. The team arrived over the weekend and attended several election rallies, and the observers already have a task on their hands to look into a clash between supporters of rival political parties that occurred on Saturday. Head of the observer mission, Stephen Rodan, says while he can't adjudicate on that, he intends to inquire into that and other incidents. Rishma Raghunath of Cayman 27 News has more.
Cayman's move to one person, one vote garnered praise from Steve Rodan, head of the International Election Observer Mission tasked with monitoring the May 24th polls.
Gives equality of representation in equalised electoral districts and, very important, equality of electoral representation, which is very important.
That was one of the recommendations coming out of the 2013 Election Observer Mission report, where progress was made. Changes to the qualification period for voting was not.
I'll be seeking to understand what progress has been made, if any, and the reasons for lack of progress, and this will be reflected ultimately in our report.
The 6-member team arrived over the weekend and attended 2 political rallies on Saturday, as well as a church service on Sunday. Mr. Rodan says the team's aim is simple.
Give confidence to the public of the Cayman Islands that whether they are pleased with the election outcome or whether they're not pleased with it, they can have confidence in the electoral process itself.
The team will be meeting with election office staff, the police commissioner, government officials and political parties.
We try to understand as much as we can from what all of the various stakeholders tell us. We'll try to understand everything from voter registration to electoral disputes, electoral offences.
On election day, the team will be traversing all of Grand Cayman's polling stations to monitor the process. 2 members will be heading to Cayman Brac to observe their operation.
A senior official of the World Bank on Tuesday called on Caribbean countries to save more for rainy days. Dr. Daniel Lederman, Deputy Chief Economist for Latin America and the Caribbean, tells CMC News he thinks Caribbean countries can get their finances in order. He says the World Bank has seen how smaller economies are able to grow fast and have become prosperous to a greater degree than some larger economies.
Smaller countries around the world, but in particular in the Caribbean and elsewhere in the Americas, tend to save less on average in the long run than our larger neighbors. And that is why we say that this is a specific, unique challenge of small economies to think about how much we need to save during good times.
Letterman would not say, however, how much regional countries should put aside for that rainy day. But the World Bank official said the Caribbean is not unique in facing this challenge.
No, I cannot. It's very country specific because it depends on a variety of variables that one would need to model explicitly and scientifically. One is, what is the nature of the business cycles, what economists call the ups and downs of an economy, that has to do with what are the sources of such economic fluctuations, what's the duration on average of a boom, what's the duration on average of a decline in growth dynamism, and how deep are the potential natural disasters and the downfall of the business cycle. And each economy is different.
Well, Letterman is staying clear of making any pronouncement on whether or not Barbados should devalue its local currency in light of its economic problems. But he did say that the experiences of countries worldwide that exit fixed pegs are very painful. Letterman said it's not an easy choice and it might not be a choice at all, depending on what is projected to be the likely response of domestic prices.
We know from the experience in countries around the world that exiting fixed pegs can itself be a very painful experience. And the smaller the economy is, the more painful it could be, because we are societies that have grown up viewing the exchange rate as the ultimate anchor of stability for our small economy. So it's certainly not an easy choice, and it might be no choice at all, depending on what we believe is the likely response of domestic prices to the flexibilization of the peg. So I would not like to opinionate, and I'm sure that the Minister of Finance and the central bank governor in Barbados have looked at these tensions with the care and deliberation that it deserves, and it's not an easy situation.
Well, Barbados' Minister of Finance, Chris Sinclair, is due to outline the government's budget to the nation on May 30th amid concerns about high debt. But the administration has already dismissed any notion of devaluing the dollar. And Letterman said the Washington-based financial institution is confident that Barbados will find a way to overcome its current challenges. Tens of thousands of Haitians living in the United States since the devastating 2010 earthquake have been shielded from deportation for another 6 months. U.S. Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly granted an extension of their temporary protected status, TPS, on Monday, saying the conditions in their homeland are still not stable enough to force them to return. The TPS gives more than 58,000 Haitian immigrants. The TPS, was come to an end at the end of July, and it applied to 58,000 Haitian immigrants. The latest extension means they will be able to stay in the U.S. until January 22nd. The Homeland Security Secretary said he would monitor the conditions in the French-speaking Caribbean nation, but he said if recovery from the earthquake continues at pace, an extension past January next year may not be warranted. So, Haitian immigrants should prepare to leave to return home then. Haitians received TPS after the earthquake killed hundreds of thousands of people. The status was subsequently renewed as Haiti grappled with a cholera epidemic, food shortages, and acute poverty. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness has urged CARICOM member states to remain engaged through the Organization of American States, the OAS, to promote dialogue and a peaceful resolution to the crisis in Venezuela. He made the statement following receipt of a letter to CARICOM leaders from Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He outlined concerns about the stance taken by the OAS as it relates to Venezuela. Gonsalves had warned that a wedge is being driven through CARICOM over a plan for regime change in Venezuela, and that there's a group of powerful nations within the OAS with an agenda of naked self-interest. But the Jamaican Prime Minister isn't in full agreement with his Vincentian colleague. He's written to Gonsalves telling him that while he shares some of his concerns regarding adverse utterances by the OAS Secretary General, which have neither been constructive nor helpful, and for which he has been rightly admonished, some of Gonsalves' views expressed in his letter do not accord with his. Holness added that while he's mindful of the different views among CARICOM member states, there are certain positions on which all in the community can agree. The Jamaican Prime Minister said CARICOM states are in favor of dialogue and they reject any attempt at international isolation of Venezuela. Holness said CARICOM should maintain a unified stance, reaffirming the position that Venezuela should engage with its own national stakeholders through an inclusive and mediated national dialogue process to resolve its domestic challenges. Still to come in Caribbean Newsline, concerns about the status of Caribbean trade. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Welcome to SwiftPack, your online shopping and shipping solution. Receive the best rates, expert cargo management, and exceptional customer service. SwiftPack provides secure handling of your smallest packages to your largest cargo with speed and reliability. We invite you to use our US mailbox service, online shopping, ship air and ocean cargo from the supplier to your door. We handle it all for you. Get started now. Sign up for a free regular account or premium account, or give us a call on 440-6100. SwiftPack. You shop, we ship, you save.
Ready. It's another episode. Then we out on the road. This is what we love to celebrate, to celebrate. This is not Hollywood. No, we don't come out the road. Drink, drink, drink.
King Papa and Nikita. Hey, hey, hey. Every fact that I go, you keep on calling me wrong name. But that's okay, cause that's my bitch. I don't understand how we're in a name tag on me. You know what to say, you still calling me wrong name.
Don't get vexed with me. Don't say that.
Chatting CARICOM, a 4-part series on the status of the regional integration process. Your chance to get answers.
We as a small island, how do we factor into that bigger picture?
Why is the process taking so long?
While there is liberty to move among the islands, you still have some level of restriction.
Chatting CARICOM also gives you updates on recent CARICOM projects.
We're seeking more and more to engage all our partners in moving forward for the development of our region.
We have come a very long way since we started.
Join the Caribbean community and CaribVision for Chatting CARICOM, a community for all. May 31st at 8 p.m.
Welcome back. The Deputy Commonwealth Secretary General Deodat Maharaj is raising concern that the Caribbean has not yet established a solid presence on the global trade market. Maharaj told reporters at a meeting of regional and international trade officials in Barbados that in 2013, the region accounted for less than 0.5% of world trade. And that was down from figures for 2009, when the Caribbean accounted for 0.75%.
And if you take away Trinidad and Tobago, the oil and gas producer, the Caribbean now only accounts for around 0.24 or less than 1/4% of world trade. So it's a time, for us to take stock and come to a view that we really need a cogent and compelling vision for the Caribbean we want by 2050. I think there are immense challenges, but if as a Caribbean people we work together, we can seize the opportunities that come up.
Maharaj believes the future of regional trade will be in its human resource capital. He believes the agriculture sector, a traditional income earner, has been on the decline for too long to have any significant impact on the Caribbean's finances.
The future of the Caribbean will not be based on commodities. We are too small to mass produce and compete with larger countries in Africa and Asia, and indeed in Latin America. The future of the Caribbean, I think, would lie in us becoming knowledge economies, focusing on the digital economy. The future of the Caribbean is tapping the ocean space and focusing on blue growth and blue economies. I think sugar and rice, I mean, they're all important, as well as bananas, so nobody's denying that. But we need to have a transition, and to achieve that transition, a cogent and compelling vision of the region is required.
In Trinidad and Tobago, government's efforts to get the courts to urgently hear their appeal against the judge's decision to put its controversial property tax on hold ended in disappointment on Monday. The appeal court says it won't hear the matter until next month. That means the injunction had endowed by Justice Frank C. Prasad last Friday will stay in place until then. He'd granted a stay on the implementation of the decision by government that all property owners complete and submit a valuation return form. CNC3's Kamal Georges tells us what attorneys for the government and the opposition told the court on Monday.
Attorneys for the state went to the appeal court this morning, hoping to have an urgent hearing of its challenge to last Friday's property tax ruling. However, Justice Peter Jamada and his panel turned down the request, saying they were not willing to hear submissions on the matter today. It means the injunction granted last Friday by High Court Judge Frank C. Prasad will continue pending the outcome of the matter. In the court today, the state's legal team argued that it should be treated as an urgent matter. According to senior counsel Russell Martino, this is a case where the state is seeking to get on with raising revenue and conduct the business of the country, saying there is legislation on the books that must be put into effect. However, Justice Jamada interrupted, stating that the government did nothing for years but was now interested in doing something. However, Mr. Martino explained that the circumstances of the state have changed over the last few months. He asserted that there is tremendous confusion out there because people don't know whether to go in with the forms or hold out on submitting them. In fact, he felt the entire order was vague, uncertain, and meaningless. However, attorney Ananram Logan dismissed those claims. On the issue of raising revenue, he said that really ought not to be the concern of the court. He says the matter is equally urgent for his client, as he has an urgent desire to keep his revenue because things are equally hard on the population. And therefore, he cautioned against rushing through. He challenged the state's claim that the order was ambiguous, saying it was straightforward. Outside the court, he had this interpretation for what it means for citizens.
The stay remains effective, valid, and in place. That means no citizen of Trinidad and Tobago has any obligation or duty to file any return form or give their house and land deed and the whole range of other things they want. Nobody has to comply with that.
The appeal will instead be heard on June 6th, a day after the extension granted by the state.
Up next in sports, the TNT Football Club misses out on automatic qualification for the CONCACAF Champions League. Stay with us.
Ready. It's another episode when we out on the road. This is what we love to celebrate, to celebrate. This is not Hollywood. No, we don't come out the road. Drink, drink, drink.
King Baba and Nikita. Every fact that a boy keep on calling me wrong name. But that's okay, cause that's my babe. I don't understand how wearing a name tag on me. Don't know what to say, he's still calling me wrong name.
Don't get vexed with me. Don't say that
Rovenel's Resort and Conference Center is the mecca of conferences in the island of Tobago. The state-of-the-art facility caters to executive forums, weddings, banquets, training, elegant dining, and tranquil accommodations. Guests at Rovenel's Resort can choose from self-catering, standard, deluxe, and executive rooms. Sit at the poolside and savor the ambience of nature, or enjoy a sumptuous meal on the terrace and inside a Bouvardia restaurant. Let's go to Rovenel's Resort and Conference Center, the Tranquil Caribbean Resort. Call 868-639-9666 or visit our website at www.rovenelsresorttobago.com.
Chatting CARICOM, a 4-part series on the status of the regional integration process. Your chance to get answers.
We as a small island, how do we factor into that bigger picture?
Why is the process taking so long?
While there is liberty to move among the islands, you still have some level of restriction.
Chatting CARICOM also gives you updates on recent CARICOM projects.
We're seeking more and more to engage all our partners in moving forward for the development of our region.
We have come a very long way since we started.
Join the Caribbean community and CariVision for Chatting CARICOM, a community for all. May 31st at 8 p.m.
Welcome back, and continuing with sports, luckless San Juan Jablote of Trinidad and Tobago missed out on automatic qualification for the CONCACAF Champions League when they crashed to a 1-0 defeat to the Dominican Republic's Cibao FC in the final of the Caribbean Football Union Club Championship on Sunday night. Ruskin Mark of C Sport has that story.
From the kickoff, Keith Jeffries' men marched down the field confidently and prized open a wonderful opening when Verlon Mills turned his man nicely and sent a pinpoint accurate cross towards main man Nathan Lewis at the back post. But for once, the normally clinical Lewis failed to hit the target as goalkeeper Juan Pablo Dominguez made the save inside the first minute. They would be made to pay for that miss in the 31st. After defending 2 successive corners, they were a bit unlucky with the third, as the deflection from Elijah Manners' body stood up nicely for an alert Richard Dabas to pounce and beat Javon Sampo from close range for 1-0 to the visitors. Jablote would throw everything at Cibao the rest of the match as they went in search of an equalizer and thought that they had it here early in the second half when Elijah Manners drilled home this beauty. But it was heartache for Jablote faithfuls when the referee's assistant had his flag up for a very close call that could have gone either way. It stayed that way to the end, and Cibao celebrated a big win and an historic capture of the CFU club title after just 3 years in existence.
Well, after the match, Cibao's head coach said he was pleased with the effort of the team that was formed just 3 years ago.
Ya nada, o sea, esperar el futuro, a ver qué nos toca y la liga.
So he's in a cloud at the moment. As a professional, this is a dream. This is a dream for him to be able to reach the CONCACAF Champions League, and now it's just looking out to the future and seeing what comes ahead. So it's been a result of teamwork, of a lot of union within the team. We've worked very hard for coming up to this competition, and I think tonight's result shows that.
And despite being on the losing end, Jablote head coach Keith Jeffers says his side played well.
At the end of the day, our game is 90 minutes. The first 45, we took a little while to adjust to what the team had to offer. But in the second 45, I think we were the better team, and overall we were the better team. We just didn't execute it the way we were supposed to. We did a lot of good work in training in Bartaya, relative to finishing off teams, and today just wasn't one of the days. It's not that the team played bad, or not that the opposition had something to offer. We just, at the end of the day, we didn't execute, and they must execute to win games, goal win matches.
And staying with football in the Twin Island Republic, Soca Warriors head coach Dennis Lawrence wants his team to remain positive going into their next World Cup qualifier against arch rivals, the United States. A full squad is already in Denver, Colorado, getting acclimatized in conditions which in the past never worked in the Caribbean side's favor. TNT is set to take on Colorado Rapids in a warm-up match before they take on the hosts on June 8th and then Costa Rica on the 13th. Lawrence says he's focused on getting the much-needed points to stay alive in the race for another World Cup final spot.
The history is not a nice place for us in terms of collecting points, but we need to go there with the belief that we're going to have to try and get points. So the idea is to go into the game and be positive, to be brave, as I continue to say again, and to try and believe that we can take points. I mean, what I try to emphasize to the boys is that we're leaving here and we're actually starting with a point. So the idea is we're not going to go there to give away the point. We're going to try and, see if we can add to the point that we've already got. So that's going to be the idea.
The head coach also stressed why it's important for the team to get accustomed to the conditions there.
The main strategic plan is to make sure that from an acclimatization point that we're well prepared physically, because that is going to be one of the biggest challenges. In terms of how we plan to approach the games, as I said, we're going to be on the front foot. We're going to try and compete with them. We're going to go toe-to-toe, because I don't think we can afford to go and sit back and allow the USA to take full control of the game. Obviously, it's not going to be easy because why? Historically, it's not a generous place for us to go, but we need to try and start thinking differently now, and we need to start thinking, look, we can go there and we can accomplish things.
Over to track and field now. A Cayman Islands Athletic Club boss is raising red flags about decisions by the Islands Athletic Association that he says are undermining his club. Derek Larner of the 345 Athletic Club says the association made changes to the qualifying times without notifying his club. He says this has disqualified some members from participating in national and regional events. But with the association expected to have internal elections in a few days' time, Larner feels that his club is being targeted.
Athletics Club president and selection committee member Derek Larner says his group has been undermined by the CIAA's executive committee.
Around about I think it was 11th of January, the selection committee has met and it set the standards for the Island Games and Carifta.
Larner, along with 4 other selection committee members, submitted 36 times in total, 18 each for both male and female, all jointly agreed on, or at least they thought.
When it came to the Island Games, those standards were set. They were then put in a policy document, which it seems that no member of the selection committee really needed to look at because they weren't told there was any changes made.
And in an immediate response, the Cayman Islands Athletics Association refuted the allegations made by Larner. In a statement, the CIAA said the selection committee which Larner sits on is one of several CIAA committees that has no discretionary powers as it relates to any decision made by the executive body. It said the committee makes recommendations regarding qualifying standards which are then sent to the executive committee for ratification, and the committee is not bound to accept any recommendations. The qualifying standards are not official until they are ratified by the executive committee and hence should not be shared. In this case, Larner abused his privilege and disclosed the standard with his athletes before it was ratified, hence creating a problem. And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Welcome to Dominica, a true fantasy island. Whether you're in search of extreme adventure, or a family vacation, or a relaxing getaway, Dominica is fun for everyone. And a place where you can totally disconnect and enjoy paradise. Discover Dominica, the nature island.
A recap of the major developments of this day. Shots fired outside Parliament in Dominica as protesters voiced opposition to an amendment to the House of Assembly Elections Act. And in sport, Trinidad's San Juan Jablote miss out on a spot in the CONCACAF Champions League. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sports around the clock, log on to CanadaNews.com. We'll be back here again tomorrow, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and good night.